many of you know, maybe all of you know, the Forge is a ministry for men here at the church that we do on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8:30. The mission statement for the Forge ministry is to invigorate and disciple men under the lordship of Jesus Christ. And that's our goal. And the way we're to achieve that is we want to invigorate guys and disciple guys so that they can be encouraged, motivated, and equipped to go out and be the godly leaders that God has created you to be in your families, in the community, and in the church. And we want the young guys here as well as the old guys. So I've a number of times said I see a lot of old faces out there. So I didn't really mean old in age, but we got some old faces, so that's cool. And old is getting younger and younger every year. So welcome tonight. Obviously, we opened it up to the ladies tonight too, because we have a young lady here with us representing the ministry that's going to present tonight. I think you guys are going to like this. We had a good time together with dinner tonight a little while ago, and what we're going to do is start off with their worship team, which doesn't have a name yet. We're working on that. The Five Stones Fight Club worship team. We're working on that. So they're going to jump up here and perform first. We're going to do a couple songs, and then Shane Manny's going to come out. He's the guy who leads up this ministry at Five Stones Fight Club. And I think you're going to be really moved by what you're going to hear tonight. He's also involved in some other stuff over in the Middle East and other parts of the world, which he's going to share tonight as well. So what I want to do is open in prayer, and then I'll give it to the worship team. So Father, I thank you, Lord, that we can come together like this in our freedom that we enjoy here in the United States, that we can celebrate the gift that you've given us, Lord, the gift of grace that none of us deserve. We thank you for that. I pray you bless Shane and his team as they present tonight, and they give testimonies, and they share their experiences, Lord, all to just give us the kind of encouragement and hope that we need to have as we go through the rest of our week. I pray you bless them tonight, Lord, and bless our experience here. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, well, I'm a little shorter than this. I guess there's a couple of us on the team that are vertically challenged. I'm sure you heard that joke later, too. Anyway, so the first song we're going to sing is called Nobody. I think, I love in 1 Corinthians where it says that, God has chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise, and he's chosen the weak things of this world to confound the mighty. And I think that's appropriate, because that's pretty much what we do. We're just a bunch of nobodies that try to tell everybody about the love of Christ and what he's done for us. And we will, at some point, give our testimonies. And you'll be able to hear firsthand how God has literally reached down, grabbed me out of the muck and the mire, and brought me somewhere special. And but yeah, so we're going to start with this song. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you've heard it. You probably have it on the radio. Sing along if you know the words. It's pretty catchy. You'll figure it out, I think. So why you ever chose me has always been a mystery. All my life I've been told I belong at the end of the line with all the other not quite, and all will never get it right. But it turns out they're the ones you were looking for all this time. I'm just a nobody, trying to tell everybody all about somebody who saved my soul. Ever since you rescued me, you gave my heart a song to sing. I'm living for the world to see nobody but Jesus. I'm living for the world to see nobody but Jesus. Well, Moses had stage fright, and David brought a rock to a sword fight. You picked 12 outsiders, nobody would have chosen and changed the world. Well, the moral of the story is everybody's got a purpose. So when I hear that devil start talking to me, saying, who do you think you are? I'll say I'm a nobody, trying to tell everybody all about somebody who saved my soul. And ever
living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus. So let me go down, down, down in history as another blood-bought, faithful member of the family. And if they all forget my name, well, that's just fine with me. I'm living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus. Living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus. I'm just a nobody, trying to tell everybody all about somebody who saved my soul. And ever since you rescued me, you gave my heart a song to sing. I'm living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus. I'm living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus. Living for the world to see, nobody but Jesus.
So, all right, my name's Mark. Hi, everybody. My story starts out a little different than most that ended up in the same place I did. I was raised in a very, very Christian household. My father, he was a minister. My Assembly's of God pastor. From an early age, I was taught right from wrong. Right from wrong. It's just, when I turned around 17, 18 years old, I just decided I didn't want anything to do with it. I went off to college. My parents didn't use drugs. My family, nobody in my family used drugs and alcohol. It was not one of those things that was ever in the house, and it's not something I saw anybody ever doing, so it's not like it was like the commercial back in the 90s. I didn't learn it from my dad. It wasn't like that was there, ever. And so I went to college, and like most good old preacher's kids, when they go off to college, I was 5 hours away from home. I went to the University of Pittsburgh to study engineering. I realized that I didn't need to study. For some reason, I guess I was blessed with a pretty active mind, and I was able to figure things out. And I decided, since I had all that extra time and didn't need to study, I'd just go out and party. I did that every day, the entire time I was in school. And it didn't affect my grades. It didn't really affect me that much at all. It was kind of like, it didn't affect me, so I might as well just keep doing it. I figured, that was the way to go. So I left when I got out of college. I decided, I was going to excel in the world of drug dealing instead of actually using the degree that my parents paid so much money for me to go get. And long story short, I ended up in state prison for a really long time, 7 years total, over the course of 2 different state sentences. I can remember, we were talking about this the other night, and I can remember, that moment when I decided to go from right to almost right. And I turned off just that one little tiny fraction of a degree, and I started making all these decisions that directly affected my life throughout the rest of the course of it. And that was in high school. Before I decided I didn't want to be the nerd, the little dorky kid that was running around, and I wanted to fit in with all the cool kids. And I started down this road that I was never able to get out of. And 20 some years later, finally, the Lord made it possible for me to get out of it. About 2 years ago, I went to a treatment center in New York City. Yeah, it didn't make much sense to me at the time, sending a drug addict to New York City to get him sober. It's like probably one of the craziest decisions at the time that I ever thought was ever going to happen. And so I went to this treatment center, and it was faith-based, Christ-centered rehabilitation center in Brooklyn. And something amazing happened. It's like all those things that I was taught from an early age that didn't save me because they didn't make any sense finally started to make sense, because somehow or another I just understood the love of Christ, the love of God for me, the love of Christ, the love of God through Christ Jesus, and things just started to take a turn. I didn't understand how it was possible. So this is a pretty cool, interesting story. So this thing, I never played one of these before in my entire life until I went to this treatment center. I went there and I started working in the kitchen, because that was what I was comfortable as. Before I decided to sell drugs, I was a cook for a really long time at a really good Italian restaurant. Not too far from here, Schuylkill County, actually. So I did that because that was easy. I went back to working in the kitchen there. That was what I was comfortable with. That's what I understood. That's what I knew. And I figured that, that would make the time of this treatment center pass for me rather quickly, and I wouldn't really have to worry about it. Because, I was leaving a whole lot. When I left, I was looking at another jail sentence, another state prison term, because I got DUI and a couple of possession charges and a couple of other things. And with my prior record score, probation was never on the table, ever in my history. It was always something wrong. I was going away for years. And so I went to this treatment center thinking that was the way I was going to get away from that. Or at least postpone it for a little while until I felt like it was like I wanted to go, And so I got to Brooklyn, and I remember working in the kitchen and being miserable. And this is funny too. I don't know, most people in New York, I don't know if anybody's from there or knows anybody from there, but for some reason everybody in New York tries to put ranch dressing on everything they eat. And for a guy that's a chef and cooking for 30, 40, 50 guys at a place, and they would come back and I would make them something awesome, and they would say, "Where's the ranch dressing?" That was really starting to aggravate me. And I was getting aggravated on a daily basis, really was. It was to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore, and I didn't know what to do because I chose to take that position on, and I was contracted to do that for the time that I was there. And so I remember going down to the chapel one day, and I was just praying. I hit my knees, and I was like, "God, what is it that you want me to do?" I was like, "This isn't working. My plan's not working." Imagine that. My plan wasn't working, right? And because, I knew everything. That's part of my story, too. I knew everything, and nobody could tell me different. But my plan didn't work at all. And I remember hitting my knees that day, and I was just like, "God, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do? Show me what you want me to do while I'm here." And I'm not going to say it with an audible voice of God, but I definitely had this feeling. I heard this. Someone said, "You're going to play that guitar." And I just thought, God, I was like, "You're crazy. You're crazy, God." I told God he was crazy, just like I told the rehab counselors they were crazy, just like I told everybody that I've ever asked for help in my past how crazy they were because it wasn't the way that I wanted things to go. And I remember telling him the exact same thing. And I put it off like it didn't happen. And a few weeks later, same situation, I'm down in the chapel and I'm praying and I'm crying out to God, like, "What do you want me to do?" And I found out that I was supposed to just not cry that day. I was just supposed to listen and hear what he had to say for once in my life. And again, he was like, "You're going to play this. You're going to play that guitar." And so I picked it up. I knew how to play 2 chords. Well, I learned how to play 2 chords. And about a week later, we had a guy come in that knew how to play the piano. And he was like, "Oh, well, let's do a praise and worship team. We can play for our devotion time in the morning." I was like, "All right, cool." So I played my 2 chords, and he played the rest of the song, and I just played it beside him. Eventually I learned a little bit more. I learned how to play a little bit more, and like 2 weeks after that, another guy came in and knew how to play the bass guitar. So we had all these instruments there, by the way. This treatment center used music too as a means for people to establish a relationship with God, and it was pretty interesting how they had this all set up there for anybody who wanted to, but nobody was using them when I got there. And so this guy came in and he knew how to play the bass guitar, and he started playing the bass. I was on the acoustic, and my friend Ricky played the piano. Then we had a guy that played the drums that came in a week later, and we had another guy that was a Grammy Award-winning singer for Tasha Cobbs when back in the day. I guess they went to the Grammys. He sang for her, and he came into the treatment center. So here's another little cool side point. All these people from all these different backgrounds all came together in this drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. You know what I mean? And we found a way to give glory to God and to praise God every single day we were there. And in about a month and a half of us practicing together, we were scheduled at churches all over Brooklyn, all over Lower Manhattan. We were scheduled to go play praise and worship services, sometimes three every Sunday at different churches all around the city of New York. And to go from not ever picking up the guitar to being part of something so awesome so quickly, I can't ever say that was anything of my doing. I really don't believe it was. I really think that I finally learned what purpose God had for me in my life. And so I came back from treatment, right? And I thought, that was my purpose. I'm going to be on the praise and worship team at my church. I'm going to do this. It's going to be awesome. This will be great. I got this all planned out, and it didn't happen. None of that happened right away. So it was kind of like a little letdown in itself. But I had other things that were going on at the same time. And that thing that I said was never possible, probation and all that, the judge made up a sentence for me. And he ended up counting my time at that treatment center and gave me house arrest and probation, which is something that never ever happened before in my life. 2 weeks after the judge made that decision, I ended up with the best job that I could have ever imagined in my life. And, I can only attribute all of those things to what God had planned for me because, my plans are nothing compared to his plans. It says that, my plans for you are great, for you to prosper, for good. And they really were, because if I had my way, well, I don't even know what my way would have been, because I decided a few months ago that I'm not going to follow my will anymore. I'm just going to do whatever he would have me do. I'm going to come around here to these places. Oh, so here's another cool thing. Shane, I ran into him. As part of my sentence, I had to go to the DRC Center. It's a daily reporting thing for probation. You have to be there every single day, 6 days a week, then 5 days a week for a while, and then 3 days a week for a while. It was a real pain in the rear end, if you know what I mean. Like for a guy that was just coming out of treatment and just wanted to work and do what he needed to do to get by. But I ran into Shane there, and through another act of God's hand being on all this stuff, he was like, oh, we need somebody to do praise and worship at the gym, at the Five Stones. We do a war room every once a month, and we need somebody to sing. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, Janelle, she wanted to sing, so we had a singer. We ended up getting a bass player and a piano, a keyboard player. So it's like, you know, the same exact thing that happened then, when I just said, God, do with my life that you will, have it your way, do your thing. The same exact thing that happened in New York happened again when I came back to Lebanon County, and it was just a really amazing thing. I think that song says it all. You know, I'm just a nobody. You know, God did something amazing in my life, and I'm convinced. I'm convinced that nothing in this world can separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. I love that. I love the things that Paul says in all of those letters to every single church that he wrote those letters to. Those letters just strike a chord of joy in my heart every time I read them. And it's really amazing how, you know, I was at a point in my life where I thought it couldn't get worse. It couldn't get worse, and it's definitely not going to get better. You know, that's what my head was thinking. It was like, I'm going to go to New York. I'm just going to do the same thing. It's just going to happen all over the exact same way that it's always happened. Because I've been in 6 different rehabs, different treatment centers throughout my addiction history. And the thing was, I just never wanted to. I think what it came down to was I knew all this stuff growing up that my parents taught me, but I didn't believe any of it. I didn't believe that there was no condemnation for those that are in Christ Jesus. I didn't believe all those little verses that were in the Bible that I believe today. And today, you know, I walk with. I don't ever do everything right. In fact, I rarely do things the right way. I think I mess up more than I do right. But you know, but God still loves me, and He still loves each and every one of us. No matter how much we mess up, there's nothing that's going to separate us from the love of God that's in Christ Jesus. And I think that's one of the most amazing things in the world. And through my time here with Five Stones, I got to meet some really interesting people. Some guys, you know, that I wouldn't have normally met under any other means. And you know, I look back and I think, you know, I sometimes used to wish that the grace of God would have saved me from all that stuff that I had to go through. I look back and I think, oh, if only that wouldn't have happened, if only that wouldn't happen, if only this wouldn't happen. But you know, I know that was not God's plan A for my life, going the way that I want, and it may not have been His plan B. It might not even have been His plan T, U, V, W, X, or Y, but it was one of those plans that after all those bad decisions that I made, He still made a message out of the mess that I created. And you know, today it's just amazing to be able to go around the churches and just tell people what God did for me. It's like our stories have power. Our stories have more power than what we really know. I always think back to some scripture verses that I read about, you know, Joshua. And it talks about that, how, you know, build this memorial with 12 stones in the center of the Jordan. And tell your children, and tell your children's children, and tell your children's children about that. And you know, the next book, Judges, it tells you they forgot to tell their children. And then that's why God had to instill these judges and had to do it His way, because nobody tells the story. And I think our stories, it doesn't matter if the grace of God saved you from the mess that I was not spared from. It doesn't matter if He took you out of that mess. It doesn't matter. That story still has power for somebody that's struggling with something. And I really think that's our purpose. I know it's mine and hers to tell anybody and everybody that wants to hear all the things that God has done for us. And this next song that we're going to sing, it's called Raise a Hallelujah. Everybody knows this one, I'm sure. It's real easy, so I expect everybody to sing, or at least make a joyful noise like I'm about to. So, all right. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah.
the King is alive. I'll raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I'll raise a hallelujah, and I will watch the darkness flee. I'll raise a hallelujah in the middle of a mystery. I'll raise a hallelujah. Fear you lost your hold on me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Sing a little louder, sing a little louder. Sing a little louder, sing a little louder. Let's sing a little louder, sing a little louder. Let's sing a little louder, sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. In the presence of my enemies, sing a little louder. Louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder. My weapon is a melody. Sing a little louder. Heaven comes to fight for me. Sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. Let's sing a little louder. I said sing a little louder. Let's sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. I'll raise a hallelujah, I'll raise a hallelujah. I'll raise a hallelujah. I'll raise a hallelujah.
Hi everybody, my name is Janelle. I'm originally from the Allentown area, and I want to start off by saying that I grew up in a Catholic household, but God was something that we checked on Sunday, and I wasn't really encouraged to have a personal relationship with Him. So I grew up also in a household that did allow alcohol, and there was lots of partying, but on the classy level, if that makes sense. It was a lot about appearances for my family, what looked good on the outside, but on the inside, we were still just as messy as everybody else. My dad was an alcoholic, and so I was involved in sports, and I was like in choirs and stuff most of my life, but it didn't take very long for me to get involved in drugs and alcohol, and it kind of has been a lifelong battle ever since. So I was 18 years old and I decided that joining the military was a good idea. So I kind of went into the Army thinking that it was going to, you know, put me in the right direction and give me some good structure and discipline and things like that. And it worked, but it only worked for the 3 years that I was actually in the service, and then after I got out, I kind of just went right back to what I knew. I wound up getting married and I had a son. I still continued a long battle with drugs and alcohol, and I was also like, I dealt with a lot of abuse and stuff when I was growing up. I have a twin brother who wasn't really nice to me. And so, past trauma, drugs, alcohol, fell back into the same stuff when I joined the military, after I got out of the military, wound up losing custody of my son. I was living in California for a few years, decided to come back to Pennsylvania, and I wound up getting my second DUI, which landed me at a treatment center, VA Medical Center at Lebanon. And so then that's how I got connected with Shane and Five Stones. And I was also kind of, had a lot of anger issues. So when I was out there drinking and drugging, I found myself getting into a lot of physical altercations with people. And so Shane and Joel came walking into a meeting one night, because we were, made to go to 12-step NA and AA meetings, and a lot of times Five Stones crew would be there with their crew. And so we got connected, and then I found out like they have this fight gym, and then coincidentally I got off of house arrest, and I at that point was like gainfully employed with the VA after I got out of the treatment program, and got off my house arrest bracelet, and the gym was literally half a block around the corner from my apartment. So I started going to Five Stones, and I started training, and I went on to become a competitive fighter, had me a few boxing matches, did pretty well. I don't want to say it. So I got the Western Pennsylvania Golden Gloves champ a few years ago. But this is like a long time ago. So, no, I don't want to do that. It was God, and it was all their prayers. And let me tell you something. I wasn't really, I tell people this, like, they also took a very personal interest in my life and where I was spiritually. And I kind of wasn't really sure like what God was all about. And I didn't have that personal relationship. And they talked a whole lot about Jesus Christ and the Bible. And I said like, I wasn't ready to drink the Kool-Aid yet. But now I'm making my own vat from it. I'm like, come drink the Kool-Aid, Christ is awesome. So, I got to, but that still took me, so let me back up a little bit. So, although they took a very personal interest, wow, okay, so although I wasn't ready to come to Christ yet, they had bridged that gap kind of when I was there. And so then there were things like the gym was moving, and I kind of got involved with another trainer who I decided to go to another training facility and kind of really just took a step back from Five Stones. And then I went through a series of what I now know to be spiritual warfare battles. And it just seemed like no matter what I did, things continued to get worse and worse. Still wasn't really ready to believe in Jesus Christ yet, and so that was like my main issue, what I now know today. And so now this road went from like doing yoga practices to fast forward a year and a half later, I'm doing full-blown witchcraft. And I didn't realize how dangerous it was because the enemy had me so deceived that doing these types of practices, that they call it the New Age movement stuff, and the New Age movement stuff is very spiritually dangerous, and I experienced it on a very personal level. I was like summoning things, I was praising and worshiping the little G gods, and basically, my own personal belief is like these things came after me. So fast forward, I wound up leaving my job. I had already left Five Stones. I left my house, I left Lebanon. I was transient for about 2 years. I was in another abusive relationship. I relapsed, I went back to drug addiction, and it was just it was really heavy. I wound up singing for a band for a little while, but things I kind of would do this and it wouldn't work out, and I would do this and it wouldn't work out, and I was full of fear and paranoia, like full of fear from everybody. I remember Shane and Pastor Nelson at the time, like they reached out to me when I was going through some of this stuff, and all they wanted to do was get me to pray. And they wanted to pray over me, and like the last thing that I wanted to do was be with them, because I thought in my own mind that they were part of this bigger grand conspiracy that everybody was after me. So what happened was I finally got an opportunity to talk to my son on the phone, who I had no contact with in over 10 years. And it was on March 16th, and my son's middle name is John. So in that moment, I had this moment after I hung up the phone with him that I realized John 3:16, that God was very personally allowing me to make the connection between the date and its significance. And God worked a lot of those coincidences throughout my life. I just wasn't able to see it the way that I'm able to see it now, at least a little better. So now I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that it's God's way of trying to stay anonymous. However, the more I get to know God, the less anonymity he has in my life. So that was like my aha moment. And I just poured my heart out to God, and I repented. And he gave me my house back. He gave me my friends back. He gave me a better job than I had before. He restored everything, and he gave me a sound mind back and a spirit of power and love, not of fear. And I just can't equate it to anything else but coming to the belief of Jesus Christ. And I was really sick, and at one point, the VA was trying to say that I had like schizophrenia, and I refused to take the medication. And once I became to believe in Jesus and I started fighting back in his name, all of those symptoms stopped. I don't have to be on any medication. I'm on 3 different praise and worship teams now. I'm part of another group called Celebrate Recovery, which has also been really helpful. But let me tell you something. God had already made these connections at Five Stones for me, so that he knew when I came to believe in him, I had a family to go back to. And I thank God for them every day. And I thank God for what he's done in my life and what he continues to do in my life. And I would not be here if it wasn't for him. He saved my life countless times, and those are all more stories that I have to tell, but I have to kind of keep it relatively short. I could be up here for weeks telling you everything that God's done for me, but I know we all have our own stories too. And it may be my story, but it's all for his glory. So thank you for letting me share.
Find it.
That one. Check. There we go. Okay. I'm technologically savvy, if you didn't know that. So my name is Shane Manning, and I'm the founder of Five Stones Fight Club. I met some of you before. Thank you for having us back. That is why we do what we do. And just like they sang, we're I'm a nobody. Trying to tell everybody about that somebody who's saved my soul. And when I keep that in perspective, this is like, thank you, Jesus. I mean, that's what it comes about. It's nothing that I do. I don't have a special gift of, I'm not eloquent of speech, if you will. I just kind of go and, if I feel like God's telling me to do something, I just okay, Lord, give that a shot. I'm going to go do that. So, Five Stones Fight Club, right? We're a nonprofit sports ministry that started out basically to reach that 18 to 35-year-old male that wasn't setting foot in the church. So, we use boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all your combat sports, as well as weightlifting, fitness. as a way to build relationships and then share the gospel. It started in my basement, and I remember standing out in my yard one time going, holy smokes, I got 45 people standing in my yard training right now. I need to get a place. So we're like, all right, Lord, I don't know what we're going to do, but you got to figure this one out. So over different moves and different people opening up their garages and warehouses, where we were in a warehouse that was not heated, and we rented a floor above where the pagan motorcycle gang rented a floor. I rolled in, I had a Harley at the time, I rolled in, and this guy gets off his bike, he's pulling next to me, and, revs the engine once, and I'm just looking over, just giving the head nod, and I get off my bike, and he gets off his bike. So he's like, nice bike, thanks. So I'm like, all right. So, and I'm in Lebanon, so I'm like, this will be interesting. So I'm like, hey, go down this alley, and it's at night. Dad and I were working till midnight sometimes and putting windows in. There was no heat. There was electric. There was no heat, no running water. It was pretty Rocky-esque. And so I get off the bike, and this guy gets off his bike and he starts following me down the street. And I'm thinking, oh, we're going to do this right here. So I'm like, I stepped and square up for him for a second, and I'm standing next to the door that we're going into the building, and he's like, oh, are you going in there? And I'm like, are you going in there? He says, yeah, yeah, I got the key. So it turns out that's where they were renting the floor below us. Well, the cool thing is we ended up having a really good relationship with these guys. See, because up top, there was no showers or bathrooms or anything, right? But there was a drain. And we used the drain, we thought it went outside. Apparently it didn't, went down to their floor. And it wasn't capped. So the pagans were pretty upset with us. But we fixed it, They plugged it at the bottom, actually, until it came out the top. They were like, oh, I guess we can't pee in there anymore. So we ended up having a good relationship with them. And I met Joel, actually, through them. Joel will be here tonight. He grew up missionary kid in Thailand and fought in Afghanistan, was dealing with some issues, drug issues of his own, and then was walking away from that, and that's when we linked up, and then kind of from then on out, we've just kind of been inseparable all the way through this. And this thing's been growing. We go from garage to garage, warehouse to warehouse. We finally have heat, and we're in a place now where a gentleman came to our 10-year anniversary Bible study. We call it the War Room, right? So we have the first Thursday of every month typically. And came to the 10-year service, and he's like, man, I don't even like boxing. I don't like boxing, I don't like mixed martial arts, it's brutal, but he says, I can't deny that God's working here, so I want to donate a building to you guys. So, and we're like, wait, what? So, fast forward, he's paying for construction for the renovations of a 10,000 square foot facility right next to Lebanon Valley College, right smack in an awesome place for ministry. And so we're totally excited about that. So if you guys could pray for me for that, that'd be awesome. Pray for the club for that. And just God's is up to something big. So we have these photos up here about the Iraq trip, right? So how does a fight club in Lebanon County have to do with Iraq or anything like that, right? So we got this crazy idea. Let me back up. So I met a gentleman named Victor Marks, and I heard he was doing some work in Iraq. I fought in Iraq in 2003 with the Marines, and I was like, man, I'd love to get back to there. I'd like to get back under a different flag, if you will. And so this guy's doing mission work in Iraq, and I'm watching this unfold in the news, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. I had a connection with some helmets, so I sent him some ballistic helmets and some tactical gear that I had. And a little while later, I see this guy. It wasn't Victor Marks, this guy named David Eubanks. He's the founder of an organization called the Free Burma Rangers. I was getting my truck fixed, and we don't have cable, so I was watching TV at the shop, and I see these two guys step out from behind a tank, and they're putting suppression out, and here comes Dave on a sprint, snatches up this little girl and brings her back. Basically, ISIS was slaughtering these people as they were trying to flee the city, and he snatched this girl up, and I'm like, who are these guys? And then my next thought was, that's our helmets. So I recognized her helmet right after that, and I was like, how did he get there? So, long story short, Dave hooks us up. Victor hooks me up with Dave, and I'm like, hey man, love what you guys are doing. Can I be a part? He's like, yeah, when do you want to come? Like, you tell me. I was like, how about next month? Okay, I'll be there. Booked the tickets, and that was pretty much it. So it was literally like that fast. I talked to him 3 times on email. He picked me up at the airport, which, if you talk about what we call the Jedi moments, I had a bag full of tactical gear that apparently you're not supposed to bring to Thailand. Who knew? And they scan it on customs, and this guy loses his mind. And I'm great. I'm like, great. Like, this is gonna be a short trip. And so he's like, open his bag. So finally I start opening the bag, and I'm like, all right, so open the bag. And the first thing on top is my gun belt, right? I got a gun belt with a drop leg holster on it, and I'm like, oh man, how am I gonna explain this one? So he's like, pick that up. So I reached in and put my fingers to where the muzzle of the pistol would be, so it wouldn't flop back open, you know what I mean? So I picked it up, and I'm like, see, it's medical. It's got a medical kit on it. And I feel his hand on my shoulder. I turn around, and it's Dave. And I'm like, first of all, how did you get into customs? How did you blew right by like armed guards? And he's wearing like PT shorts, like real high shorts on, boots, black shirt tucked in, and a Free Burma Ranger green like olive drab baseball cap. And he's like, he says something, and this guy just freezes, like goes. So the guy that was losing his mind literally just goes silent and looks at Dave, and Dave's like, says something in Thai, and he says to me, close your bag, Shane. So I put my stuff back in. And then he's like, he's with me, and the guy didn't say anything, he didn't even move. So he's like, pick your bag up. So off we go. He grabs one, I grab one. We walk out, and he goes, man, I can't believe that worked. Me either. So I'm like, yeah, like for all these Star Wars fans, right? I'm like, that's my first Star Wars moment, I would say. Dave was like, this is not the drone you're looking for. You know, whatever, the droid you're looking for. I'm like, that's like what happened. Like, but this has happened multiple times. Another short story before I get into this real quick. And we'll bump through some of these slides really fast, but this is how God works, right? This is how God set this entire thing up. When, like, Dave has a thing, he says, we just pray and go. Great model, pray and go, right? They're actually in Syria right now. They were at a casualty collection point, I think it was like 2 days ago, and while they were treating casualties, they got hit with mortars. They shelled the casualty collection point. They were able to load everybody up and get out with no injuries. They were also ambushed in a town, I think it was called Tal Tamer, where they took rounds through the vehicle. Everybody got out. This doesn't happen. This is like the norm for these guys. So I'm like, man, God's got his hand on this ministry, and it's just so awesome to see that work. So anyways, fast forward. So we made some connections through them and through FBR, through the Free Burma Rangers, and I meet a guy named Mohammed. Mohammed was a Iraqi soldier who was shot 6 times by ISIS. He and I become pretty good friends. And so he's like, you need to come see me. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. Well, so this Iraq trip, was actually spawned by another man who texted me at 3:30 in the morning. I hear my phone go off. I'm like, who? Like, who's texting me at 3:30 in the morning? So I get up, and I'm like, it's an emergency, you know? And I flip it on, and it's an instant messenger, and it says, when's a good time to be talking about Jesus? And I was like, oh, Lord, right now? I'm like, all right, in 2 hours. And I'm like, and of course, I was like, and he goes, okay, I'll call you. So I was like, okay, sweet, 2 more hours. So it turns out this guy, his name is Ibrahim. He was a Muslim, came to know Christ through a vision. Said he saw Jesus Christ come to him and say, follow me, or Isa is what, or Isa is what they know Jesus as. And that's how he became a Christian. Walked away from his family. His family actually threw him out, lost his job, was living in the mountains, basically as a nomad. And he's like, his words to us was, but it's worth it. He said, are you a pastor? I said, am I a pastor? I'm like, why would you think I'm a pastor? And he goes, I saw you baptize people. And I'm like, oh my goodness. He was watching the Five Stones Facebook page. So like at a war room, we have baptisms. So he's seen it, and he's like, yeah, you're baptizing people. I'm like, that's our gym. So he's like, what? So I told him the whole thing. He's like, when are you coming? I'm like, I guess I'm coming and see you now. So we set the trip up, and so he actually ended up knowing Muhammad, the guy that I met through FBR. So we ended up rolling in. This guy here first on the left, his name is Tassim. Tassim was actually kidnapped by the Hashishabi while he was trying to help an American get into a place called Sinjar. Sinjar Mountain was the site of a serious genocide by ISIS. They slaughtered a lot of those Yazidi people, and that's what the IDPs or internally displaced people. A lot of them are Yazidi. The guy, this is Joel, right, that I met through the pagans, and this is Mustafa. Mustafa was a 16-year-old leading special forces units, American special forces units, through the streets. Did I go the wrong way here? There we go. So on this first trip, we were able to do an IDP assessment, So we went in, well, before we got there, we found out the people that we were gonna meet up and work with, they're like, hey man, one of the camps burnt down, we can go see if we can help. So we were like, great. So the very first day, like we get there and we're off and running. And God's opening the door. They're like, we don't know if we can get in. Let's just go try. We walk in, they let us in. They're like, who are you guys with? We're like, Five Stones. They're like, Five Stones? I didn't tell them Five Stones Fight Club. I said, we're Five Stones International. And they're like, oh, sweet, come on in. Who's gonna let a fight club in, first of all? We're like, Five Stones Fight Club, who are you guys? So of course, I didn't have this t-shirt on. I had one of the ones in the back that says Five Stones International. So they're like, yeah, come on in. So they gave us a tour, and they're like, what can you do? And I'm like, I have no idea, but we can pray for you guys. So during the time, there were over 20 tents that had burnt down. People had literally lost everything. So basically, paperwork, all their stuff, birth certificates, everything, they don't exist. And how can they go back and get them when their towns have been completely destroyed? They literally don't exist. So it's really, really, really sad situation. So we were able to pray with some of them, and we were able to actually help them get their pad sites cleaned up and ready to establish in the tents. So, we're working with a group called PCCR, Plain Compassion Crisis Response. It's actually an Amish and Mennonite group out of New Holland. And an awesome thing about that is, so we roll with those guys. This here is a bombed out Saddam Hussein palace from back in '91. This is up in the Kurdish region, right at the Turkish border. We could see Turkey was bombing the mountain that we were on before. This is well before this thing in Syria kicked off. We drove up there and actually they're like, you guys cannot be here. And we're like, but we are. And so they're like, well, you gotta go. Like, well, where are we gonna go? They're like, you gotta go back down the mountain. Your vehicles look like Yapaka vehicles. And I'm like, well, Yapaka or YPK, right? That's like one of the groups that Turkish military was bombing with drones. And then we're like, well, we're gonna go eat dinner on the helipad next to the minefield, and then we'll leave. And so we did. We walked down, and these guys are like, you Americans are crazy. And we're like, yeah, we can pray for you. You know, and so we prayed for a couple Peshmerga guys, and they're just kind of like, they just stood there and looked at us, whatever. So after dinner, the sun's going down, we could hear the wolves howling. Pretty cool, right? Across the minefield, hear the wolves howling, sitting on a bombed-out helipad next to a bombed-out Saddam Hussein palace, next to Peshmerga's forces who were worried about us getting bombed because we looked like somebody else. So we decided what better thing to do than sing praise and worship songs. So we're standing on helipad singing praise and worship songs in English across this valley, and it's echoing across into the Turkish plain. And at the end, we screamed Jesus 3 times, and it kind of echoed, and that was kind of cool. Everybody kind of looked, you could saw the Peshmerga guys like, what are they doing? So obviously we didn't get bombed, because I'm here. But my translator was like, what happens if they bomb us? We have armored vehicles, right? I'm like, dude, you're gonna get hit with something the size of a truck. Like, this ain't an armored vehicle, it ain't gonna save us. Well, what do we do? I'm like, nothing, what can we do? Let's pray. And so that's kind of, I took a play from Dave Eubanks' playbook of just pray and go. So that's what we did. This was all on our last trip, right? So needless to say, all the contacts that we made in our last trip is what's setting up our trip, which we leave this Thursday. We're headed back to the same region and do some similar work. Now, if you look, we were able to connect with some people. The guy here with the backpack on, he's Peshmerga Special Forces. His name is Omer. Awesome guy. Really just took care of us. Got us to places that we probably wouldn't be able to get into. Another just God connection. You know, this is a guy, he led one of the defenses of a 1,600-year-old mosque, which is what we're standing at, or a 16-year-old, 100-year-old monastery, Christian monastery. And he defended that entire valley with his troops when ISIS was trying to push on it and destroy it. They would fire rockets and they would fire mortar rounds, but every time it would go, no matter how much they changed it, they'd fall short. Like, you want to talk about the hand of God, he said it was like God was swatting out of the air, you know? So that's pretty cool. The guy next to him, the tall guy with the red hair, his name's Eddie. Eddie was a SWAT officer in Virginia. I worked with him in Thailand and in Burma with the Free Burma Rangers. That's when I met him. So he was kind of our driver. He actually has his Kurdistan residency card, so he can actually live there if he wanted to. Then there's Joel, and then there's Muhammad. Muhammad is the guy I was telling you about that was shot 6 times by ISIS. Well, he was actually doing a rescue, and he plugged a bullet hole in his neck with his finger. He drove his buddy back to the casualty collection point and was like, treat him, and then he collapsed. But luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, by the grace of God, he survived. His friend died, but both of those men actually are believers. This is DeLoe. DeLoe is he's Kurdish, and when the ISIS occupation was happening, he would sneak. His house was behind enemy lines, so at night he would sneak back to his house, do family, and then before the next morning he'd sneak back on the lines to fight ISIS from the other side. He did that every day until ISIS would push back out of his backyard, basically. And then that's the culprit right there in the end, Ibrahim, who sent me that blast at like 3:30 in the morning, who, through the grace, or through the prompting of the Holy Spirit, were like, let's go rock and roll and go see these guys. So we were able to do food distribution. The food distribution, these people were people that were displaced by the genocide by ISIS, right? So they were living in a partially constructed building with no running water. They didn't have any food, no diapers or formula, and they had a bunch of young children. So, like, this was one of those things where, like, we just need to find out what we can get with what we have. So we went down to the local grocery store and we loaded up everything that we could possibly buy and distribute. So we got able to do a food distribution, and we were able to pray with them as well, and they were very, very appreciative. So I mean, the need there is great. So if you look at these little orange bags, right? Those orange bags, they are part of a trauma toy, right? The lions and lambs. These things are donated to us to distribute through an organization called All Things Possible Ministries, or Victor Marx Ministries. If you guys don't know who Victor Marx is, check him out, look at his website. You can find him on YouTube. But these things are trauma toys. So they play music, and then they also have Bible verses talking about God's love, how they're never alone, and how God loves them and they're important and they matter in their own language. These are actually in Kurdish, so we pass this out to the children, and it's something they just hang on to. The music is actually engineered to help lower heart rate and help decrease anxiety, so they can actually sleep. So that's kind of an awesome connection when all these things are rolling together. There's a bunch of different organizations that came through to help us do this mission. We had the Free Burma Rangers, who let us use their armored vehicles, who let us stay at their safe house and let us have the use of their translators. Obviously, they were more than willing to do it because we were friends. But PCCR was the one that could get us into the camps and different places. And then Victor Marx with All Things Possible Ministries with the Lions and Lamb trauma kits. So we were able to do this. There's the diapers. My wife always says it's funny to see you go shopping for diapers. So that's what we were able to link up, and that's my favorite picture right there. Literally, they have nothing. And so these are people you can pray for. They are the Yazidis. They recognize Jesus, but they don't recognize him necessarily as the Son of God, if that makes sense. They're more of a syncretic or animistic, religion. So Our Bridge Orphan School, this is the school that we went to, where this school was built by 4 German filmmakers, and what they did was they came to document the genocide. And when they got there, we can't just take pictures, we gotta do something. So they just stayed. They got the German government involved, they built the school, and now they run this thing to these children. A lot of these are orphaned children of parents who were executed by ISIS. Some of them were actually children who were held by ISIS, or possibly even ISIS children. So it's an interesting mix there, and it's awesome to have the opportunity to share Jesus with the love of God and Jesus through these trauma tools, and they're happy to get this stuff. I mean, it's just a really sad state of affairs. I mean, there's over 300 kids in this school, and we were able to get lions and lambs, to them. Now they also, if you look, you see the playscapes and stuff. This is all these playscapes are built by the children, or helped to be built by the children. Like that woodshed in the back there with those tables and benches, that's part of their therapy. So they actually learn a skill here as well. The German people did an awesome job with this setup, and so they were just able to really put together an awesome facility. And so we were asked to come back. Finally, they're like, yeah, there was a great time when we had a boxer come in and he did some boxing classes, and it really helped with the kids with PTSD. I'm like, but he won't come back. He's like, it's not safe. So I'm like, wait a minute. He won't come back? He's like, no. I'm like, do you know, like we're Five Stones International, right? And I'm like, do you know who? I'm like, let me get you a card. And my card says Five Stones Fight Club on it. And the German guy reads it. The German guy's like 7 feet tall. Like I'm up to his knee, and I mean, like it's a true story. There's a picture of me standing on the roof. I should put it in here. And I look like a little, like he could like this and pat me on the head. As we're standing, I'm leaning on the roof. It's at my chin. He's like at the waist, leaning over, looking over the top. He's huge. But anyways, he was like, I don't understand. And I'm like, dude, this is what we do. This is how we pay for our trips. Like we use our gym to fund our trip. Like, this is what we do. So he's like, so will you come back? We're like, yeah, we'll come back. I said, well, let me know. He's like, we're going to build a facility. We want to put bags and gloves in here. We want to do this stuff for the kids because it really helped with their PTSD. And I'm like, listen. I said, we'll come back. We'll come back every year. We'll come back for 2 weeks. What we'll do is we'll give you a week of instruction with the adults so that you know what to teach the kids. The second week, we'll teach all the kids. We'll run clinics for the kids. And then when we leave, you guys can just run it, keep the program running until we come back the next year. And I said, listen, so we'll help you raise money for the bags. We'll help you raise money for the gloves. We'll do all that. So they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like, come back. This is cool. So that's an awesome connection that got established just out of, just out of a fight club. I mean, how's a fight club work in ministry? That's how. Another interesting connection, right? So after we went to an underground church. The church in Iraq obviously is semi-persecuted, we could say. There's certain sections of the church of Iraq that are a Christian section. In northern Iraq, the Kurds, right? There's certain sections of Kurdistan that have regular churches, open churches, right? And then there's other ones where this is a house church that we meet in, and so this guy says, hey, he says, I'm an Iranian. And I'm like, okay. And he says, but would you help us? I'm like, maybe. What are we doing? And he's like, I need help unloading these boxes. I'm like, sure, what's in them? He says, Bibles. I'm like, yeah, no problem. We're smuggling them into Iran. I'm like, yes, I will definitely help. Because we have 2 trucks coming, 20,000 Bibles, packed, inventoried, and ready to ship into Iran. This guy's been running Bibles, over 100,000 Bibles into Iran. He was actually Iranian army, Iranian military. We had the opportunity to meet him and a couple of his guys that work with him. That's him. He's a good-looking guy, you can tell. At one point in time when we had dinner, we sat around a table, and literally everyone in the whole place are literally marked for death. There's bounties on their heads. And these guys are like, yeah, man, we love Jesus, so we're just going to go until we don't go anymore. And I was like, wow. The one guy in the far back on the right side, he's actually an Iranian official who was smuggled out, became a believer. These guys smuggled him out, and they were actually ambushed. They fought through the ambush. They all survived. And so we had dinner together that night. I mean, like, the stories, like, they're like, it's surreal. And I'm like, man, like, we think we have it bad, I listened to Casting Crowns and talks about how you want your coffee, you want your coffee in your lobby, and you keep your church on Sundays, and I'm like, man, these are the church. They are living. Man, they're the modern day apostles. These guys are rocking and rolling in places where we can only imagine what the persecution is like. We think we're persecuted when somebody's like, I don't like Christians. And meanwhile, these guys are marked for death. There's, so there you go, top left, these are the ones we help smuggle, pack to be smuggled in, I should say. They, and this is an ongoing operations. They're like, can you help us? I'm like, yeah, man, we'll help you whenever we can, yeah. So, the Bible on the left is actually, it's in Farsi, or it's Persian. You know where the number one, the biggest, where the church is growing the most right now? Any guesses? The place where the Christian church, followers of Jesus, where the church is exploding right now. Any idea? Iran. Where it's the most heavily persecuted. See, we're too comfortable. When we get comfortable, so there's 2 ways that Satan can attack you, right? He can try to take everything from you, or he can let you have everything that you ever wanted. If he takes everything from you, you can curse God sometimes. Sometimes we end up cursing God and saying, why would you do this to me, Lord? And really, God's like, that's not my intent. You don't need those things anyways. And Satan's whispering in your ear, oh, look, see, God doesn't care. He took everything from you. Or Satan will be like, I'm going to throw all this at you so you can keep it. Then you get fat and happy. And then, look, God is so good. And you forget. You forget about everybody else's struggle because you're completely content. And you get lulled to sleep. Sorry, I'm about 10 minutes over here. 8 o'clock is typically when you end. Sorry.
No, 8:30.
No, you serious? Sweet. So church outreach, right? We went to this church on Kawa, and it was Assemblies of God Church. And you want to talk about a lively church. I couldn't let me back up. On the sermon, I could understand everything because they had those little ear things, like they would translate for you. Whew. Powerful. Worship. I mean, I don't know what they were singing about. I mean, I knew what they were singing about. I don't know what they were saying. But I mean, you got the people, the ladies up there doing that like tongue roll thing. And the whole, I'm like, at first it scared me, but I mean, like, it was wild. I mean, they were just, I've never seen a praise and worship service like that. And I'm like, yeah, in the middle of Iraq. You know? And here we're in what I would say is the greatest nation in the world. You know, and we're like, we're singing. If you put your hands up, you might be a little more charismatic. Don't do that. Right? I mean, we have that thought process, and I'm like, man, these guys, no wonder they're excited, man. They know that, number one, the church is persecuted, right? And heavily persecuted, not just like made fun of or we'll take your tax write-off, right? Like, people will kill you. And they're like, good, because if you kill me, for me to live as Christ, to die as gain. They literally have Paul's words as like, let's rock and roll. You know? If you're going to do it, let's do it, because I'm winning in the end. Right? What a testimony. Then, after this, I meet the pastor, and the pastor's like, hey, what are you guys doing here? And so we tell him, you know, and they're like, Fight Club, huh? He goes, will you come back and do an outreach for us for the Kurdish teens? We're like, yeah, man, we'll come. So, we're like, what do we got to do? And it's like, you tell me. We'll in this section of town, it's a Christian section of town, right? So, like, anything goes. You can evangelize and proselytize. But, like, if you're in the Islamic side of town, obviously, it might cost you your head. So you got to be a little more tactful with it. But here, if they come to you, different story. Number one, they love exercise. The Iraqi people are, like, stuck in, like, the 90s, so they love, like, Jay Cutler and all the different, like, bodybuilders. And so they, of course, everybody there is doing like curls and triceps and stuff. And so like, it's just, that's what they do. But they're like, man, if you guys come and you guys bring some Americans, they'll come because they think that you guys are like cutting edge with everything. So we're like, sweet, let's set it up. So we're working through that whole thing. That's probably next year, next August probably, is what that's looking like. There you go, Assemblies of God. So through this whole mission, right? We've had, we met the IDP camp managers, which were UN officials, where you actually get in, talk to the plan officials, and like, you come back whenever you want, bring your people, come back whenever you want. So then, on this next trip, we're going to see those people who said come back whenever you want, because we're going to come back. Establish a good relationship with the Peshmerga forces. This next trip, we're meeting some, a captain and a general, and we're working on, it looks like, very good possibilities of meeting I don't even give the name because it won't be, a very, very high-ranking official that could literally change the scope of this ministry in that entire region. Access to just about everything, to literally everything. When people are calling me and telling me, and they're like, yo, I just talked to this guy and they want to talk. Like, I'm like, and literally, I'm like, we're nobodies. Like, what do they expect? They're like, nothing, they just want to talk. Okay. We were able to distribute food, which we're doing that again. Trauma tools, we talked about stuffed animals, right? Diapers, formulas, all that kind of stuff that we take for granted, where you can roll down like the 7-Eleven or roll down to the local Giant 24 hours and go pick up things. Like, they don't have your basic essentials, you know? They literally left everything and they're on the run living in a camp. Some of these people have been in these camps since 2014, living in a tent. Now, you think of Iraq, you think of being hot, right? When we were there, it was 115 degrees. However, it does snow there as well. So just like we have this change in season, they're on that downhill slide now. So it's about to get cold. There's little kids rolling across the border. I just got some pictures 3 days ago, of little kids who have bath towels wrapped around their waist because they don't have clothes. That's their clothes. They got a t-shirt and bath towels. I'm like, man, like they literally dropped everything they had and took off to get out to flee the fighting from the Turkish forces pushing in. A lot of those refugees that are crossing the border right now are believers. So it's literally brothers and sisters in Christ who are fleeing slaughter. And so that's one of the main reasons why we're headed out here this week. So I always show that picture, like, that's the reality of our work, right? We were at a fair just the other weekend, and this guy walks over and points one of our banners we had set up, and he's like, "What's that picture?" I'm like, "Which one?" Mark was there, and he was angry. And I'm like, "What are you angry about?" He's like, "Oh, you got a gun with the Bible." I'm like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Listen, the best way I've ever heard it explained was by David Eubank, and he says, look, he goes, you've got to extend the hand of peace and love. But if they don't take that hand and they're trying to cut yours off, you need to be able to fight them with the other one. Because at some point in time, we're called to rescue those stumbling towards slaughter, right? We need to stand in the gap for the ones that can't stand in the gap for themselves. We need to be able to stand up and protect innocent life, right? I think it's funny because we're so used to saying, yeah, I stand behind our police officers. Interesting. Why? Well, because they enforce justice, right? Yeah. And they enforce law. Yeah. They carry guns. Right? We're trying to spread the law of the Lord, which is really, really simple. Love God, love your neighbor. Right? We're also trying to help justice. Now, obviously, the Lord is the one that's vengeance is mine, says the Lord, right? However, when we're defending innocence, I believe we need to stand in that gap. We send our soldiers, right? Same thing. They carry guns, and they go, and we say, yes, they fought a just war. You know, I'm not saying we need to go wage war and be convert or die, but what I'm saying is we need to be able to go into these dark places. And I've heard it said this way, would you rather kick a dog with or without teeth? Right? Our weapons are primarily defensive. They're always defensive. We don't go on the offensive. We try to withdraw. But sometimes you need to shoot your way out of things. I haven't been in that situation here. I know that some of the guys from FBR have been doing that. And I mean, the amount of good that they're doing is unreal. You know, they're saving lives. So I like those conversations, not because I'm trying to say, prove you wrong, but like I like to, let's have that dialogue. You know what I mean? It's funny because it's no different than when we go try to speak at church and they're like, Fight Club. What's a Fight Club ministry have to do with anything? We always say we struggle with validity on both ends, right? You have the church looking at us and saying, well, there's no way they're good Christians. Look, they're out there fighting, right? And then you have the fight world looking at, well, they can't be good fighters or Christians. Like, where have the Christian warriors gone? You know, we've got comfortable. We live in a nation where we have everything, so we don't need to fight or stand up for anything anymore. So we've lost our gut. We lost our drive. And so this is our kind of our way. See, like, we have a lot of guys that come out of the military, right? Guys in the military, they're usually guys that are like, yeah, let's push the fight. Like, so we get them spun up, get them trained up, get the word of the Lord and the sword of the Lord in their hand, and be like, let's go forth and conquer in Jesus' name. You know, it gives them a mission. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. So that's pretty much the end of our presentation. But if there's any, are you guys gonna sing again? One more time or no? Okay. Yes, no? Mark's saying no.
I said if there's no time.
Okay. So any questions? Let's do questions first. Any questions? Anybody? Go shoot.
I just wanted to ask, did you explain what IDP was?
Oh, sorry, thank you. IDP, internally displaced people, right? The difference between an IDP and a refugee. An IDP has not crossed the border, so they're internally displaced in their own country. Refugee has crossed the border. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Mom. That's my mom.
I have a
It
question.
was up on the screen, so that's why.
Good.
How many people do you have that are participating in the Five Stones Fight Club?
Oh, man. Fighter-wise, you mean? Or like as in... I mean, we probably have like, I don't know, maybe...
We have over 500 members that come in and out of the gym randomly. Some nights they're
Sean, that's Sean's channel. Sean's the director. He runs the daily operation at the gym. So, thanks, Sean. Thanks. Good question. Yeah, it's funny, when we look at that number, it's like, 500 people, seriously? Like, it seems like a lot, but like you said, it's cyclic.
The gym had been a sort of a beacon in Lebanon where we were because we were in a really, really bad area. And
Yeah.
the day we opened, there was
Come up here.
sorry. My voice is pretty loud, I'm sure.
This might hurt your ears. What I was trying to say is that we opened Five Stones again after like the 5th move that they had, and I kind of came on board with them. And the gym moved into a place in Lebanon where there was like absolutely nothing going on. And the second we opened the door up, there was a huge infiltration of teenagers and early 20s guys that came into the gym. And it was probably like 80% Spanish speaking, so it was kind of, we had to have some translators. I got one back there, you know. Mr. Keem, come on up here. Come here, man. Come on. Anyway. But yeah, what I was getting at with that is that there are like tons and tons of teenagers and young people and people of all ages that come to Five Stones. And over the course of from 2016 till now, we've signed up probably 1,000 people. But I would say 300 to 500 people randomly will come through. There might be a night you haven't seen somebody for months and they just show up, work out, they're out the door, so.
I'll also say that sometimes they check in. Like, it's funny when they'll disappear and then they'll show back up and all of a sudden they're like, what's up, man? And they're like, oh, you know, can we talk? And we're like, yeah, what's up? And so then next thing you know, they're just spilling their guts about, you know, life. And you're like, holy smokes, man. It's like, I just need prayer, you know. So we'll sit and we'll pray with these guys. And then they'll be gone and you won't see them again for another couple months. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff.
Can you explain a little bit about the war room?
The war room. Yeah. The war room, it's kind of an amazing story, actually, how that started, because when we moved into the location we were in Lebanon, we had been having a Bible study with a pastor every 3 months or something like that. It wasn't very often. And only like 3 people had come. It was really small. And I sort of had it connected with one of the people that came to Five Stones that their pastor was going to come to the gym and teach the Bible study. And God laid it on my heart, like, hey, dude, you're going to have to man up and do it. So I'm like, all right. So I ended up having a couple of Bible studies, and there would be like, the first one we had actually had 17 people, and we thought that was awesome, and God was doing something. We kind of had all the regular guys that were in the gym every night at that Bible study, and then it would kind of go up and down, and then it went down to like 6 people that were only there. And then I really had been praying hard about it because I felt like we could do better, and it was tough. But anyway, answer to my prayer was Shane shows up with Joel and this guy Patrick, who I had just met, and they came in, we prayed about it, and literally the next time we did it, there was like 35 people there, and then the time after that, there was like 60 people there, and then numbers kept going up and up and up until the last time was like 125. We had so many people there that the church upstairs was angry, and it was just like too much because we're like overfilling the capacity of the building and stuff. So
You gotta love when a church is like, you can't do this. There's too many people. What?
yeah, it was a pretty cool problem.
We're like, let's feed people outside and then we'll bring them in. like it was wild.
Yeah, and War Room started out as us just meeting for like a Bible study. We would have like some kind of theology or something, and then it turned into like me and Patrick are actually talking one day, and I was thinking like, do you think we should do baptisms at Five Stones? And he's like, let's pray about it. So we were on the phone, and he had prayed about it. And I've been going to the same church for like 6 or 7 years. I've never seen a baptism. I've seen baby dedications like crazy. The very next Sunday, we went to church. They take us outside, and they're baptizing these 3 girls at the service. And I'm just like, there's your sign. So we ended up getting this big like feeding trough, And whenever people
From
come to
Tractor
Christ,
Supply.
we just kind of like make it official at the gym, you know? So that's kind of what War Room's about. We usually like hang out, we have a meal. There'll be people that are just feel really called to like get a baptism or just talk their testimony or whatever. And it's been great. Like God gave us a band, these guys show up. It's been pretty awesome.
We had just recently, one other side note, we had 2 people show up and they're like, hey man, they have this thing called the Lad. It's like UFC Fight Companion. It's like a blog, right? And so they're like, hey, we're doing like fighter profiles of local fighters. Can we come in and interview some of you guys? We're like, yeah, no problem. So they come in and next thing you know, thanks, Mark. Next thing you know, they come in and they're like, hey, we want to interview you guys. We're like, yeah. So they start asking questions like, hey, who's your favorite fighter? You know, what was your favorite fight you saw? And a lot of our guys are like, I don't know. And they're like, wait, what do you mean? This is a fight gym, man. Like, how do you not know these people? Like, don't you watch UFC? And they're like, not really. So, like, this is like the worst interviews ever. You know, like this is going to be bad. So they're like, I don't understand. So, like, I took the one guy and said, listen, we're a sports ministry. Let me give you a tour. So I gave him a tour, told him how we got everything, how God blessed us. Like, literally, we started with, like, nothing. And God, like, was like, here, have it. Filled up our space with more equipment than we know what to do with. Free mats, free everything. And I say free because God owns it anyways and just let us use it. And so I take it back to where the War Room's at, you know, we got mats rolled out and there's sound equipment stuff up there, and, you know, our praise and worship guys are in there, you know, playing and doing their thing, and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, it's what we do. So then they're like, hey, they said overseas mission, let me see what, you know, so I kind of give them that. And so they're like, well, we're not really religious. And I'm like, sweet, man, neither are we. And they're like, I don't understand. So they leave. Next day they come back, they're like, hey, listen, so we changed our mind. We want to do something different. There's too much going on. Can we just do a documentary on you guys? So we're like, yeah, but they're like, we're not really religious, so you're going to have to direct us and tell us, you know, what you're looking for. So I was like, oh, yeah, no problem, man. So the next
That guy's wife ends up getting saved.
we have a war room. Dude.
They were not having any of that at first, because I had this like hour-long talk with the lad. And the other guy's wife, though, comes and
Snot and ball into the
I
altar.
had no idea it was his wife. Like, she came up and requested prayer, and she was all like, I don't know, and it was really moving. Like, we prayed for this girl, and then she walked up, and here it's, you know, Jason's wife.
And Jason's like,
how did this happen?
What's going on? So then he got saved. And then they've been going to church at our church, and we're like, yes. And then we look over at Warren, and we're like, you're next. And I'll tell you this too, Warren's just one of our guys, Warren, the other guy, one of the 2 guys, his wife works, you know, for Sherwin-Williams. And they're like, at the new place, they're like, hey, we can totally get you guys like donations. We have a $20,000 grant, this and that. And I'm like, sweet, man. So like he's like, just tell us what you want. So my dad came down, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, so can you like show me what I need? And you know, so my dad's a painter, so he's like, yeah, list it all out and everything, and turn it in. They're like, okay. They're like, all right, like fill the grant request out. So I'm like, all right, can you give me a sample? So he sends me a grant request, and it's got like nothing on it. It's like paint, and I'm like, I don't like. How am I supposed to make the paint? And they're like, no. Like the grant is something different. Like no one's applied for this grant yet. Like you guys are the only ones. We'll be the only ones apply. They need people to apply for this. They give $20,000 or make a list of the equipment that you want. And they're like, it's done like next month. So then they're like, that's when they pick the thing. We're giving you the paint. And I'm like, wait, what? So like, yeah, the paint's done. We got that done. We'll cover. If you need anything else, let us know. So I'm like, wait, so you tell me you want us to fill out this grant that no one else put a request in for yet to get $20,000 for weight equipment? They're like, yeah. Okay. So we met with the president of the company and with the president of the shop there, the big distribution area, and we're like, we just love what you guys are doing. You know, we're really pulling for you guys for this grant. They came down and took a picture, put it in their like publications and stuff. I mean, so it's pretty wild. I'm pretty confident in saying that I think the Lord's going to bless us with that grant. So it's pretty good stuff.
Shane's already got the list real detailed, you know?
That's right.
We're confident about that.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
talking about coming to this area?
Yes. Thank you. So we're still looking at that. There's probably 2 or 3 churches that are like, yeah, expressed kind of interest. The hard part is we still have nobody who's willing to step in and say, yes, I'll take that and I will do that. I shouldn't say nobody. We have 2 people. We need about 4 or 5 more that are willing to just commit and be like, I'll take one day a week and come in. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You know what I mean? Like, we're open 4 hours a night. So.
I was gonna say, everybody that works for Five Stones, including Shane and I, we don't take a commission or any money or anything. It's all volunteer work. So it's really hard to find 5, 6, 7 volunteers that are gonna dedicate their time to this. And like I've only actually known Shane for a couple of years. He's been doing this for like over 10 years. And I was involved in teaching karate and kickboxing for about 12 years. I taught, and I got paid for that. And so part of my testimony is I hurt my neck really bad, and I couldn't do anything for 6 years, and I had to give all that stuff up, and I thought that I would never do it again. I just thought, God, don't want me to do that anymore. And, you know, I came to Five Stones to just help. Next thing you know, I'm better, and I'm boxing and having a good old time. But the point of it is, you got to have people that are dedicated to teach. They got to see the value in what you're doing. If they don't see the value, it's really hard to get it to stick. So I'm sure God will bring that up at some point, but it's tough.
Keep praying. We're totally for it. Like we've been working on like a model of like, hey, look, this is what it should look like. So it's like in print and everything. But you know, we've had the conversation with like 2 or 3 different churches. And, it's just everybody's excited, and then when it's time to put your name on the line, people are like, just sitting on our hands. So.
Can we pray for you, dude? And her?
Say what?
Can we pray for you?
Yeah, let's get
These guys are going to.
Yeah. Good.
Where are you guys going?
I don't even know exactly where.
Iraq.
I know.
We're flying into Erbil, and then from Erbil we're going to push to Duhok. Duhok is kind of like the epicenter where all the refugees are kind of converging. So yeah, you can totally pray for us. So Janelle and I and one other guy, Skylar, who's not here tonight, we'll be leaving Thursday.